both kind of thought we knew what there was to know about cats. We just kind of figured we would have learned everything kind of like through osmosis of having lived with cats. But there was quite a bit once I started searching that I realized I didn't know about cats. And I kind of think it's probably pretty common for people to have cats and not know some pretty basic stuff about them. They kind of weirdly get seen as like this type of weird dog or something, and they really are a very different animal. And so if you are looking to get a new cat or have just become hyperfixated on cats that you've already owned, I think you'll probably still find lots in this video that is new to you. I spent probably a couple of months consuming so much content about cats. My goal with this video is just to kind of give you the like absolute nuggets of information in a condensed way to maybe spare you months and months of watching tons of videos just to find the nuggets. To give you some highlights right from the beginning, the main categories that I'm going to be covering include understanding cat communication, understanding cat nature and cat relationships, creating a cat-friendly home, the physical care and health of cats, understanding cat behavior and cat routines, and building trust and companionship. I have one cat. Her name is Pepperoni. She is about to turn 2 years old, and we got her when she was about 8 weeks. So while she's coming up on her birthday, we're still a couple months out of how long we have had her. This is her bowl that she like sleeps in a lot of times. I'm kind of hoping she'll make an appearance at some point during this video, but we'll see. I'll definitely still be splicing in some videos and pictures of her because I'm pretty obsessed with her. If I were going to do a really quick like TLDR for cats, things that I didn't know about cats that I think anybody who is spending time around cats probably should know, those would include cats are territorial, more so than dogs usually. I think a lot of people are aware that if you have a dog and you're introducing another dog, that you need to be careful about that introduction. I think introducing two cats is actually way more risky, and because they tend to be territorial, and I don't think people necessarily understand that. And that's why multi-cat households can be tricky, and there's just a lot that goes into owning cats and taking care of cats that really comes down to their being territorial. Another aspect that is really key to understand is that cats are an animal that really kind of demand that you respect their consent and their boundaries. I think this is a little bit of where that like princessy concept or aloof concept comes from with cats. They are very different from dogs in that sense, in that they want to be respected more than they want your approval in a lot of cases. And so understanding signs that a cat is interested in being pet or engaging with you so that you know when you do and don't have their consent is really key to building a good close relationship with cats. Third is overstimulation. Understanding that cats are often prone to overstimulation is a big deal because you're not going to have a good relationship with a cat if you're overstimulating it frequently. And last but not least, cats having spaces to hide and to climb up high are truly essential. They're not like an extra like nice thing to give cats. They're something that are really a basic need. Let's do a section on cat communication. One of the most important things to understand when trying to understand how cats communicate with you is ear positions. How like pointed or how far down a cat's ears are can tell you a lot about their mood. When a cat's ears are like up and pointed forward, that is a happy cat, a friendly cat that is interested in their environment, that is probably going to be happy to engage with you. The big sign that a cat is not happy or is not interested in further interaction is when their ears go flat. On the internet, a lot of people call this airplane ears because their ears kind of look like the wings of a plane. When they're out to the side and they're really flat, that is not a happy cat. They definitely need their space. So that's a definite sign that it's time to back off. The second major body language sign that is important to understand when communicating with cats is tail position. The happy, comfortable, social position for a cat's tail is up. A lot of times it will be like slightly hooked, kind of like a candy cane or something like that. That is generally a cat that is happy, relaxed. A really critical thing to understand about cats' tails is that when they wag their tails, it is absolutely not the same thing as when a dog wags its tail. So, of course, we all know that dogs wag their tails when they're happy or excited. When cats are swishing their tails back and forth, they are overstimulated, upset, need their space. This is a really common place where people who aren't super familiar with cats and cat body language will go wrong, as they will misread the cat swishing its tail as a positive or happy body language sign and will continue to play with the cat or pet the cat, and then that's not gonna end well. The vast majority of the time, tail wagging is a sign of overstimulation, and so what they really need is space and to be left alone to decompress. Cats will also swish their tail back and forth if they are kind of hunting prey, whether that is in a literal sense or in a play sense. So if you are playing with a toy that is moving, they might, crouch down and their tail will kind of wiggle before pouncing on a toy. So in play like that isn't necessarily a sign that you need to back off, because they're pretending to be predatory in that situation. However, if you are yourself engaging with the cat, like petting them as opposed to moving a toy with them or playing with a toy that they are trying to pounce on or catch or like fight the toy, then that's different. So if you are petting the cat and their tail starts wagging, that's a sign that they are wanting you to back off. The final element of cat body language that is key to understand is the slow blink. So what I mean by that is sometimes a cat will look at you and then they will slowly close their eyes. Sometimes it's kind of pretty squinty and then open them. Cats are both predator and prey animals in nature, and because of that prey portion, they know to not close their eyes around anything that might be a threat to them. So if a cat closes its eyes to you, that is showing that they trust you. And they have done studies on this. There was a 2020 study that showed that cats were significantly more likely to slow blink at a human if the human slow blinked at them first, which is so fascinating because this suggests that if you use cat body language to signal to them that you trust them by you slow blinking first, then they are more likely to return that. So it really seems like, based on that study, that cats understand that trust is something that can be kind of exchanged. If you are trying to build a relationship with a cat, you slow blinking at them first is really kind of an olive branch of, hey, let's be friends, let's trust each other. And finally, in this cat communication category, a tool that humans can use to signal safety or to kind of request interaction from a cat, and that is to offer them your hand. Some people do it like this, some people kind of stick out a finger, kind of like a nose. If you do that instead of just petting a cat, they might bump your hand and like nuzzle your hand, and that is kind of their way of saying, yes, please pet me, or yes, I'm interested in interaction. There is a small caveat here, because some cats are very prone to overstimulation. Some cats might nuzzle your hand, but then when you pet them, they quickly start swinging their tail because they're already overstimulated. My cat tends to do that a lot. So what I've come to learn for my cat specifically is that when she nuzzles my hand, that is her way of like showing affection and saying like, yes, I like you. It doesn't necessarily mean that she is capable of being pet for a long period of time when she does that, though. However, it is still a great way to interact with a cat to show that you are kind of reading their cues and are looking for signals of their consent and their trust. Second subcategory under understanding cat communication is vocalizations and recognition. So this is typically what we think of as meows, but there really is so much more to cat vocalizations than the like straightforward meow. One of the most fascinating things that I've learned about cat vocalizations is that adult cats typically do not vocalize to other cats. Cats who are meowing are typically meowing for the benefit of humans. They are trying to communicate something to a human, whether that is something like please feed me, or a desire for attention, or some other need. Not all vocalizations are positive. If you look up videos of cats that are sparring with other cats, you'll find that there are certain types of vocalizations that are almost have like a growly type tone to them. They have ways of warning other cats to back off. And individual cats can vary. My particular cat does a very like stereotypical meow when we are preparing to feed her. Most of the rest of the time, my cat does a trilling sound. I might have a video of her doing that I'll be able to add in here. Another way I've seen it referenced is the activation noise. So if you've ever had a cat sleeping near you and you touch them and they're not quite expecting it, they'll do this kind of merp type of sound. My cat does versions of that when they are like activated while sleeping, but also frequently at night when we go to bed. Our cat will stay in the living room for a while and will do that sound while playing. Different cats vary for sure, but over time you can learn your cat's different vocalizations and what they tend to mean. Another thing that I've noticed with our cat is she will do a true meow if she kind of gets lost. Like occasionally she'll jump in a cupboard and we don't realize she's in there and I've shut her in a cupboard, and then she'll do a more typical meow to let us know like, hey, I need out of here. A lot of people think that all cats purr. This isn't true. If your cat never purrs, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are not happy. And also some cats purr almost silently, like very, very quietly. While other cats, have like this big motor where they're purring all the time. It just really varies from cat to cat. A study on cats that I found really interesting related to vocalizations. This was a 2019 study, and it proved that most cats can distinguish their own name from similar sounding words. So that shows that they understand kind of some degree of meaning in what their name means versus other words. Pepperoni. It also found that cats recognize different individuals, which I feel like most anybody who's had a close relationship with a cat will be aware that they interact differently with their owner or others that they know versus a stranger. So to me that one's a little obvious. A somewhat similar study from 2022 showed that cats also can recognize the names of other cats and of other people. So in the same way that they react differently to their own name, if they live with another cat and that other cat's name is said, they will react in ways that show that they know it's not their name and that they know it's not a random word. Like they understand that is the other cat. And same thing with the names of the people in their household. New section. This one is on social nature and relationships of cats. Cats' body language is different when they are interacting with other cats versus when they're interacting with humans. When it comes to ear body language, the rules largely are the same as when a cat is engaging with humans. What is really different about cat body language between two cats is tail position and what that means. So as I said earlier, tail up or kind of in that like slightly hooked position is a very friendly sign when a cat is approaching a human. And when two cats have a friendly relationship, they often will have that friendly tail shape. However, sometimes the cat tail position will still be up when the cats will avoid each other or will have aggression. So basically, tails are a less reliable sign of how two cats are going to engage with each other. And also, if a cat has a tail down when interacting with a human but not like tucked, that's kind of a pretty neutral sign with humans, whereas with cat to cat interactions, that tends to be a sign of either avoidance or aggression. So overall, if you are trying to read how two cats are interacting, it's a clearer sign to watch their ears than it is to watch their tails. A little bit of a subcategory here. Let's get into cats' social structure and social needs. So there's kind of this old myth that a lot of cats are completely solitary creatures, or that all cats want to be the queen bee and that no cats have any interest in other cats. Instead of that being true, research has shown that cats really cover a wide spectrum of how social they are in regards to how much interest they have in other cats. So some cats do seem to show preferences for solitary living, while others are highly social. In a lot of animal species, they will either be obligatory social animals or completely solitary, and cats are a little bit unique in that a lot of cats can go either way. They can be solitary, or most of them can thrive in certain social situations, which from the pet owner perspective is a good thing, because then we can choose whether we want to have a single cat or be a multi-cat household. Research has looked at what they call free-living cat colonies, which most people might think of as feral cat colonies, or just feral cats in general, I suppose. And those studies have shown that when resources are fairly abundant, free roaming cats will often choose to live in colonies. So that definitely suggests that a lot of cats do prefer some amount of socializing with other cats. However, a lot of cats, when resources are too scarce, will become more solitary. One study found that one of the bigger factors in whether cats will form colonies or stay more solitary when they're free roaming cats is specifically the amount of food resources. So it seems that when food resources are scarce, that is when cats are the most likely to become solitary. It has been found that in these types of colonies, when resources are plentiful, that a lot of cats will develop preferred associate relationships, which is like such a silly term to me to see in a study about cats. But it basically means they will like make a friend, like this is their best buddy, or maybe we can think of them as like their spouse or something. So they will be within this wider community, but then there will be a set of cats, of two cats, that tend to spend most of their time together, or they cuddle more, or things like that. So even when cats are in a bigger community, a lot of times they will make special bonds with individual cats. This research has also showed that cat colonies are often structured around family lines, especially with related female cats. So if you think like mother, daughter, sister type relationships, these within cat colonies tend to be more affectionate and more tolerant than unrelated female cat colonies or colonies with male cats. New subcategory: multi-cat households. So as I mentioned, I only have one cat. I am just sharing what I have researched on this. When looking up information about getting a cat or a kitten, you will very frequently come across the advice of adopt in pairs. And I saw this advice and we debated it quite a bit before getting our cat Pepperoni. Ultimately, we decided that going from no cats to two cats felt a little overwhelming, but it is kind of the most common advice. So I thought I would get into the benefits of that. Sort of as the last section mentioned, related cats, especially related female cats, often get along quite well. So if you are potentially interested in, at any point, having more than one cat, then adopting two sisters or a mom and a daughter can be a great way to really reduce any challenges that would come from being a multi-cat household. When somebody has a pre-existing cat and adds in a new cat, that can be a particularly challenging scenario. One study showed that when a household had a cat and tried to introduce a new cat, approximately 50% of the time there was some amount of fighting or biting or chasing upon that first introduction, and then about 30% of them continued to have aggression or difficulties between the two cats after the initial introduction. And so when adopting two cats that have been together from birth, that just reduces or nearly eliminates that risk. Also, if looking at kittens, when a kitten has another kitten to play with, that lets them get more of their energy out. It means that you as humans don't have to entertain the cats as much. It just gives them a buddy and somebody to play with and get their energy out with. One thing that we knew when choosing to get just one cat was that we would have to be open to playing with our cat and helping to meet her needs for play and exercise. If you are looking at getting multiple cats or into introducing another cat into your household when you already have a cat, resource management is the best way to ensure that less aggression happens. Cats are surprisingly territorial, at least it was surprising to me how territorial they actually are, and so having plentiful resources really is helpful. So that means plenty of food, space, like plenty of space for cats so that they can each kind of claim their own area. Multiple litter boxes. Basically, you want double of everything that your cats might need, at least, because each cat is going to want to be able to claim one of each resource that they need. Another factor to consider is that research has shown that cats who have previously lived with other cats are more likely to do well with joining a multi-cat household than cats who have previously been solo cats for the home. New section, creating a cat-friendly home. Again, cats are territorial, and a really critical thing to understand about how cats see their territory is that they see space more vertically than humans are prone to doing. So we might think a space is bigger if there is more floor space. Cats are more inclined to see a space as bigger if they can climb higher. If you live in a smaller home, you can still make the space feel big enough for your cat by giving them vertical space, which is exactly what my husband and I have had to do because our home is, I want to say 350 square feet. This place is tiny. So we have still ensured that our cat doesn't feel like their space is limited by having tall cat trees. And I would say even if you have a really large home in terms of horizontal space, that having a really tall cat tree is really beneficial for cats because they do just see space as vertical. Also, cats naturally used to like perch in like literal trees, and so it is a very natural, instinctual desire for cats to want to get up high. And so a lot of times if you look at what people think of as bad behavior in their pet cats, it is things like getting on their kitchen cupboards or getting up on their fridge. They don't want their cat up there. And cats aren't getting on top of your stove to be bad. They are climbing because they have a natural innate desire to climb. And so for that reason, cat trees really aren't some like luxury thing to get to spoil your cat. They really are a way of meeting a cat's basic needs. So I would see getting a cat tree, especially a taller cat tree, as really an essential purchase for anybody who owns a cat.
Pepperoni, what are you doing? Are you being naughty?
Another really critical way to make your home cat friendly is to have hiding spots for your cat or your multiple cats. Most people know that cats love boxes. This is at least in large part because they can kind of hide in them. Other options would be cat beds, especially ones that have sides or a top enclosure. Tunnels. Our cat has a tunnel that she loves to play in. She's the only cat here, so she doesn't do a whole lot of hiding. But in multi-cat households, having a place where they can kind of tuck away is pretty critical. And one of our cat trees has multiple boxes that she can lay in, and the one that is more enclosed is the one that she tends to lay in most often. Another way to make your home cat friendly is to have appropriate places for your cat to scratch. This is another way that I hear people talk about their cats being naughty, is by scratching their furniture, like their couch, or sometimes like the edges of their doorways. Cats really need a way to scratch their claws. There are a whole different range of cat scratching products that you can buy, and they're not all the same. Cats are often pretty particular in what they do and don't like, so if you have bought some sort of cat scratching product and your cat is still scratching your furniture, I would suggest trying other variations of cat scratching products. Some cats really prefer horizontal scratching, so they'll kind of do it while standing up. Others really prefer to like kind of stand on their hind legs and scratch up high. So if you have a cat like that, you'll want a tall vertical scratching post. Some cats prefer ones that come on like an incline. Also, the materials vary. This bowl here is a cardboard one. Some cats really love these. I have a friend who has shown me hers, and it is like almost completely fallen apart because her cat loves it so much. We've had this one for a long time. She does scratch it a little bit, but very little. Our cat prefers the sisal rope scratcher, that it's actually part of her cat tree, but there are several like segments of sisal rope, so she can stand on her hind legs and scratch up high. She really likes that. We all have a second cat tree that has hemp rope on it, and she scratches that one some. We also had tried a completely horizontal cardboard scratcher. She really didn't use that one at all. Every cat is different. There are two other types to try. Would be, they make ones that are basically covered in carpet, again, vertical or horizontal, and they make mats. It's like sisal, but it's in a mat form rather than a rope form. Some cats really prefer those. When we had first got Pepperoni, we struggled with her wanting to scratch our curtains and wanting to scratch like an ottoman that we have. But for us, really the answer was that tall sisal scratcher. Definitely keep trying until you find what works for your cat, but they do have that natural instinct to scratch. It helps their nails. They kind of shed the outer casings of their nails when they do that, so it's a very natural need that they have. And if you don't provide them with appropriate space to scratch their nails that they really like, then you'll find that they're gonna end up harming your furniture and stuff like that. But sometimes if you do find that they are trying to scratch your furniture or other belongings, noting the materials that they're scratching and whether they're doing it vertically, horizontally, or on an incline can help you get a sense of what your cat is looking for, because Pepperoni was always scratching vertically, and that helped us to realize she needed a vertical scratcher. Another key part of creating a cat-friendly home is litter boxes. So this might not be pleasant for most of us, but it's important to understand that litter boxes are a big deal to cats, and it's because of how territorial they are. When they use the litter box, that is one way that they leave their scent on a space. And where you place their litter box can kind of send them a message about how much they are or aren't welcome in kind of the heart of your home. So a lot of people, because litter boxes are kind of yucky and we don't like seeing them. We certainly don't want to smell them. A lot of people will naturally feel inclined to put the litter box in the basement or in some back like laundry room or somewhere else that's really tucked away from the spaces that people spend the most time in. And unfortunately, that is a bad idea when it comes to making your cat feel really welcome in your home. If you want your cat to feel like they really belong in your living room, in your bedroom, etc., then having their litter box in a main space, active social space within your home really can help send them that message that they are welcome here, that their scent is welcome here, etc. And also, it can help motivate you to really keep on top of litter box maintenance as well, because if you see it more often, you're just going to be reminded to clean it more often. Certainly if you smell it, then you're going to be inclined to clean it more often. So it really can be a beneficial thing for us too. Not the most lovely part of owning a cat, but it does go a long way to make them feel like they belong in your home and are welcome in the heart of your home. Many people suggest having 2 litter boxes for one cat and then at least 1 additional litter box for any additional cats. And the logic for this is that many cats want to do number 1 in one area and number 2 in another. So if you have 2 litter boxes, some cats will use one for number 1 and one for number 2. And then also a lot of times cats, multi-cat households, like each cat will want their own box. They don't want to share. Having more litter box options can allow each cat to claim its own box or multiple boxes. Another note that is important to know on litter boxes is that scooping rather than waiting for the box to like get full and then doing a full clean out really is pretty essential. The example that I saw that really helped me to understand this from a cat's point of view was a lot of times people will note that if they don't scoop very often or don't scoop at all, then as soon as they get their cat a new litter box, they'll rush in and use the litter box immediately. And they said when your cat's doing that, it really is showing you how much they have resisted using the box previously. Like they are so excited now that it's clean that they have kind of been holding off, basically, if they're rushing in right as soon as it's clean. And if you aren't scooping, then the odds that your cat is having to step on either clumps of urine or of feces is pretty high, and that is a really unpleasant experience for them, but it's also just not a very cleanly thing that they might be getting that in their feet and then, leaving the litter box and going back over your house with those dirty feet. And so scooping at least once a day can, one, ensure that your cat isn't having to go to the bathroom in a space that they feel is dirty and gross, and that they're not delaying using their litter box in hopes that you'll clean it. And it will just keep your home cleaner by getting less of that stuff trapped through your house. Final note on litter, there is a correlation with urinary issues in cats, like UTIs and things like that, and scented litter. The type of litter that I have come to feel is the safest is unscented litter. I just have one cat and we do try to scoop every day, but I started off using scented litter before I learned that it was not so ideal, and then switched to scentless or unscented, and I noticed no difference at all in how much our house smells. So I kind of am of the belief that the scented litter isn't really doing much unless you're not keeping the litter box as clean as you should. I really have found no issue with using unscented litter, and I just feel better knowing that it's not as risky for her urinary tract. Come up here. Not gonna lie, I had to bribe her a little bit. Which is funny because she often does spend a lot of time in this bowl, but I noticed the last time I made a video for this channel, she didn't get up here much either, which is kind of funny for her. Everybody wants to see how pretty you are. So for this next section, physical care and health of cats. The biggest thing that I learned on this was that wet food is kind of fairly essential for cats. I used to think that it was just kind of like a luxury, largely like it is for dogs, but cats have a tendency to stay dehydrated. And so the big benefit with wet food in cats is that it helps them get more water into their diet, helps them be less dehydrated. On the other hand, dry food is great for cats because it helps keep their teeth cleaner. It helps with like tartar and plaque if they are chewing crunchy foods rather than only soft foods like canned food. The best route is to use both regularly. So that is what we have always done. We give her wet food twice a day in like a set amount, and that we know isn't enough to like completely keep her full. And then we leave dry food out all the time, and so she gets really excited for her 2 portions of wet food a day, and then every day she eats some dry food in between those 2 wet meals, so that we are helping her with hydration and also keeping her teeth a little bit cleaner with the dry food. And on the topic of hydration, cats don't like water that isn't moving. And so like traditional bowls of just leaving a bowl of water out, cats will drink like stagnant water some, but they will typically drink more from a fountain. There is a whole lot of cat fountains that you can find, and I was really surprised at how much of an increase we saw in Pepperoni's water intake when we switched to a fountain. It's pretty gross, but with scooping the litter, the size of the clumps of her like number ones got so much bigger when we got a fountain because she just drinks so much more. Another big benefit to the fountain was prior to having the fountain, if us humans had a glass of water, she would try to drink out of our cups like all the time. It seemed like any super cold water, like if the glass had condensation on the outside of it, she was always like trying to lick the outside of our glasses. But also just anytime we would get a fresh glass, like she always wanted the just poured water. No matter if we had just given her a fresh bowl an hour ago, she wanted our cup if we had just refilled our own glass. And that was greatly reduced when we switched to a fountain. So she doesn't try to drink our water bowl, or our water bowls. She doesn't try to drink our human water glasses nearly as much since getting a fountain. While on the topic of a fountain, I will mention that, in my opinion, getting a fountain that has a physical filter, kind of like the spongy looking filter, in addition to like a purifier. Honestly, I don't think a purifier is really necessary. Like a lot of them use the charcoal filters, and those really just purify the water. So, I adore her and am happy for her to have purified water, but I also don't particularly mind if she's drinking just straight tap water. But my thing is I don't want her water to be dirty in terms of having hair or dust or lint or other like particles in it, like physical gunk in it. And she is a longer haired cat, which might contribute to this, but like the second that we put out water for her, her own hair is in it, especially because she likes to dip her finger into any bowl of water before drinking it. With the first fountain we had, it just had the charcoal filter, it didn't have the physical filter, and so the hair would show up in the fountain and we would still have to change the completely like clean and replenish the water in the fountain all the time. Like really every day it would have hair in it if we weren't completely refreshing it. Where with a fountain that has the physical filter, it will catch any hair, dust, dirt, and so then you can go a little bit longer between having to refresh the water, which is nice. New subcategory, health essentials. Spaying and neutering your cat if they don't come to you spayed or neutered is important for stopping overpopulation of cats. Cats can reproduce really quite young, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed with way too many cats, way too many kittens if you aren't spaying and neutering your cats. It is beneficial for there are certain cancers that cats can get if they are not spayed and neutered, so spaying and neutering can reduce their cancer risk. Cats also tend to just live longer if they were spayed or neutered. It can reduce behavioral problems in cats, especially in multi-cat households, because their hormone cycles can impact how they relate to other animals. Another health essential is nail care. So I've already mentioned that they should have a scratcher to help remove the excessive sheaths that their nails will build up. For some cats, it's somewhat optional if you trim their nails. Usually if cats scratch things, then they don't absolutely need their nails to be trimmed. Depending on your relationship with your cat, or how much they want to do biscuits on you, whether they're trying to climb your curtains, things like that, you might find it beneficial to trim your cat's nails more than just the scratching that they do on their own. But it can be somewhat optional as long as they are scratching. However, older cats, perhaps especially if they get arthritic, sometimes will stop scratching, and then trimming their nails becomes truly essential, or they can become ingrown and have health problems due to the buildup on their nails. Trimming your cat's nails does not hurt them if you do it appropriately. If you're not comfortable doing it yourself, cat groomers will do it, vets will do it. You can look online for guides on how to avoid their quick. I personally find it easier than trimming dog nails. Perhaps that's just me. It can help your cat tolerate nail trimmings a little better if you get them used to it when they're young. A trick that we are working on utilizing to make it a little easier is giving a really high value treat. Pepper really likes those liquid push-up type treats. I think they're called churros, but a lot of different brands make them. For whatever reason, she just really goes crazy for those. And they're kind of great because they take quite a while for her to eat. And so those can be used to kind of distract the cat while somebody else is working on trimming their nails. While trimming cat nails is not cruel, declawing cats is. That is something that some vets just won't even do anymore. When cats are declawed, it actually damages a permanent part of their body. It is not just that excessive part of their nail. It gets into the bone, and so that tends to lead to arthritis. It can also lead to cats being hesitant to use the litter box. It just isn't, it's just not an ethical thing to do.
Just look at me.
You opened your crackers. Who opened your crackers? Some in their cheese crackers. New section. Understanding cat behavior and routines. A key piece of understanding cat behavior is overstimulation. Cats have kind of complex nervous systems, and that makes them very prone to overstimulation. And when they feel overstimulated, it can be physically painful for them. There's kind of a lot of jokes that are made about how cats kind of ask you to pet them, and then you pet them 2 times and they seem to be loving it, and you pet them a 3rd time and then they bite you. That is a great example of overstimulation. Cats are especially prone to being overstimulated when their back is touched. So that's another way that they are quite different from dogs, is that you made a noise. Most cats can tolerate much more petting from their head and neck area. Also right above their tail, kind of their booty, tends to be a good place that makes them less prone to overstimulation. But their back, especially lower on their back, kind of her shoulder area, she tolerates quite a bit more. But yeah, cats get overstimulated easily, and when they bite you or like move to get away from you after requesting petting, it's because at first being pet felt good and then they became overstimulated. The biggest giveaway for overstimulation is when their tail starts swishing. Another way that cats can show overstimulation is by trying to create physical distance. If you're petting your cat and they kind of start walking away from you, or they like jump down off your lap or something like that, that sometimes is a sign that they need time and space to not be touched. You always want to try to any like body language or behavioral cues where they're trying to get away from you, because that can definitely be a sign of overstimulation. Cat routines and schedules. Cats are surprisingly routine focused. So if your goal is to not be woken up on Saturday by your cat like demanding breakfast, then not feeding them immediately after you wake up during the work week is a great way to reduce that. I've been really surprised, like not just around the food routine, but our cat like definitely seems to have a routine related to just kind of odd things. Like there are certain places in our home where she is more likely to be hanging out in the evenings versus in the mornings. During the day like this, it's probably like a 50-50 toss-up whether she is sitting here in this bowl while I'm working or if she will be in her cat tree. But she almost never will be on this other cat tree up against our wall. But she often uses that in the evenings, like just before we go to bed. If I wake up in the middle of the night and she is not in bed with us, she is often laying on our kitchen floor, and she never lays on our kitchen floor while we are up or during the day. Even what time of the day she goes to the bathroom seems to be the same. So she definitely has her little routine. If you don't want your cat to wake you up, then staying on a consistent routine in terms of what times of day you interact with them in different ways, especially related to feeding them, can make a big impact on that. New section, building trust and companionship. For cats in general, but especially kittens, play is a pretty big deal. If you want to bond with a kitten in particular, then playing with them by using a toy and like helping the toy to move, because cats mostly like to play with things that move, can be really beneficial. As humans, we tend to love cuddling and petting our cats, getting them to purr, things like that, but cat language is really that they like play. And for cats, play largely is about simulating hunting, and so that is why using a toy that moves, they make all sorts of different wand toys that you can move, different types of like balls or those spring toys, anything that they can bat around are a pretty safe bet that will get them pretty excited. You can even tie this into their love of routine, so you can have a set time of day where it is kitty playtime and they can come to learn that and look forward to that bonding time with you. Of course, cats vary a little bit, but I thought I would share some of our favorite toys. She has always really loved the small plastic spring toys. They just move in sort of unpredictable ways that seem to be pretty exciting for cats. She has always loved hair ties. She plays fetch if we like shoot a hair tie. The little crinkle foily balls she really likes. She really tries to eat like plastic wrappers, anything that crinkles. So like obviously we can't let her eat plastic, but she does seem to like those little foil balls, and I think it is because they crinkle. We have a small tunnel. When we first got her, she was so small that she could set up in the tunnel. Now she can like barely even fit in the tunnel laying down, but she does still use it. She will like run through it. The one we have has a ball with a bell in it, and I think that helps like entice her, because like if we kind of toss the tunnel and that bell goes off, she'll like shoot through the tunnel. Most any of the toys that are like a handle with some sort of a string, they make ones that have different like mice or birds, or ones that are just strings, all sorts of different ones. She's actually gotten less into those as she's gotten older, but when she was a baby, those were huge for her. I'll link one in particular that it's actually just two tiny pieces of like curled up cardboard, I think, but it's on a wire. And the like moving that one across the floor, it really kind of looks like a bug is moving, and she really goes particularly crazy for that one. Another thing that has been really great for her in terms of play, or maybe more so entertainment, has been bird feeders. I have become a crazy bird lady because of her. Right outside of this window, which is like, I work from this desk, and so I sit here a lot, and we have multiple bird feeders out here. And we put up one-sided cover on this window so we can see through it, but when you are outside during the day, you cannot see in. And so that allows the birds to not be able to see us, and so the birds aren't afraid of us, and we have feeders just a foot or so away, so we get a really good up close view of the birds. And she spends a lot of time just like looking out this window and watching the birds. I definitely think that getting a bird feeder can be great cat entertainment. Something that we do on occasion is YouTube has videos that are made for cats that use like ASMR to put like bug and bird and other nature sounds to movement on the screen, and that definitely captures her eye, and it can be really interesting to see how she engages with that versus how much she doesn't care most of the time if we have a movie or like a regular YouTube video on. When the weather is nice, leaving a window open, she loves to sit in an open window. One of her cat trees we specifically put in front of a window. There's not a bird feeder or anything out there. It just faces our backyard. You can't see cars going by, so there's usually not really anything in particular to see unless there happens to be a squirrel or something. But she spends a lot of time just looking out that window too. So I think in general cats love looking outside. So if you can set up beds or cat trees near windows, that can definitely be really good enrichment for them. This blew me away. So I'm a little bit of a therapy nerd, maybe a lot of a therapy nerd. So I knew a lot about human attachment, but I recently learned that cats have attachment with their humans too. And in the same way as humans and their caregivers, cats can have a secure or an insecure attachment with their owners. And it can be determined in much the same way that we would determine it with a toddler. When looking at how cats react to their owners leaving and then coming back, it shows you how secure your attachment is with your cat. So a securely attached cat, when you come back home, they will come up to you and, maybe rub on your leg or meow at you or whatever to kind of briefly say hi, and then they will usually go back to whatever they were doing or whatever they felt like doing. Where cats with insecure attachments will either be excessively clingy once their owner gets back home, or they will avoid acknowledging that they got back home. Hi, baby. Something else that was really fascinating to me about that study was that approximately 65% of the cats that were tested fell into the securely attached category, which is really similar numbers to what percentage of humans have a secure attachment, and same thing with dogs. Let's look at how cats and dogs compare when it comes to building trust and companionship. Cats may or may not be cuddly, and this does not mean that a cat that isn't cuddly is aloof or doesn't have a good bond with their owners. I suspect that a lot of this comes back to overstimulation, but some cats just are not particularly physically affectionate, but they can still be well bonded to their people. This is definitely true of my cat. She is not much of a cuddler. Her tolerance for being pet is fairly limited. She gets overstimulated quickly, but it is pretty unusual for her to be in a room by herself, at least while we are awake. If I step outside to make a phone call, she will sit at the window and meow at me. If I take a shower that is too long, she will meow at the door, wanting me to let her in. She definitely likes to be by me or by my husband. She is often close by us. She likes us, but she doesn't love to be on our laps very often or to be pet a whole lot. She tends to show her affection through being in close proximity to us and by like nuzzling us like just rubbing up against us. She also does vocalize when we get home or when we wake up. It's pretty clear to us that she gets excited to see us when we get home and when we wake up in the morning. A similarity in cat and dog behavior is zoomies. I did not realize that cats can get the zoomies like dogs, but Pepperoni definitely does. There are 2 times of day where she tends to get zoomies. One is after we wake up. We kind of call it crazy kitty time. And sometimes before we go to bed, she will do it too. She will just kind of zip back and forth, running around, just kind of being silly. She vocalizes a bit more than usual and is just extra playful. They can be similar with how food motivated they are. Of course, in both cats and dogs, this varies. But cats really like food, and food can be used to kind of help get them through some less preferred activities like nail trimming, or with Pepperoni having long hair, she has occasionally gotten mats that we needed to work through, and she doesn't love that because it can be overstimulating, and using a treat or a type of food that is particularly exciting to her definitely works as a reward for her. In my opinion, cats tend to be more quirky or to have more unique traits or preferences than dogs. Our kitty is pretty open to different types of food, but I know lots of people who have cats that are extremely picky about what kind of food they like. Our cat has a particular blanket that she likes to smurgle, which is like when she is making biscuits and like will suck on the blanket, but it is just that one blanket. Just what kinds of toys they react to or don't react to. So many little things. Cats can be quite particular. Cats tend to be more schedule oriented than dogs. My experience with dogs is that they tend to either be very social or not. Where with cats, it oftentimes, like, there is this range of how social they are, but then also even more social cats tend to be less social with strangers than they are with their people, where in my experience, usually if a dog is really social with its people, it will be excited to meet new people. Not that it would treat strange people the same way it would treat its family, but I think what's unique about cats is they can be quite social with their people and quite antisocial with anybody who's not in their family. The last thing that I think it's important to understand about cats is that they can be more expensive than dogs, because I see wet food as pretty essential for them, whereas just dry food can be appropriate for dogs. Obviously, they need litter that dogs do not need. They have similar medical needs in terms of how often they should be taken to the vet, vaccines, flea medication, heartworm medication, etc. That is all that I have for you. In the description box, I will be linking to different studies, research that I found for this. I also will link to the Jackson Gallery YouTube channel, because I definitely learned a lot from his channel, and also his show, Cat from Hell, I think is what that is called. Which I think what's great about that series really is that it shows you that cat behavioral problems are unmet needs. And so learning about what your cat needs and figuring out how to meet their needs will get rid of what seems like behavioral problems. I also will link to different products that we have used with her and that we really love. Let me know if you have any questions and I will do my best to answer them. Otherwise, I will see you on my next video. Bye. Ooh, Halloween kitty. Hi, Tweety.